to get a little more familiar with BlueKai, how does BlueKai define itself in the context of the data-driven marketplace, and what is its role?
We're the largest data marketplace out there, and our role is fairly simple. It's to bring together the creators of the data and the buyers of the data. For the creators of the data, we want to guarantee that they're able to get fair price, that they're able to get controls and not have their data leaked all over the place without having people pay for it, able to have a minimum bar on privacy, able to have scale, because a marketer doesn't want to come in and buy from 52 different data sources. They want to go to one place and get scale. And for the buyer, it's basically similar issues: ease of finding the data, common standards on the data, how do you define it in a way that makes sense, quality standards, single billing, single platform for integrating with the media.
Great. How do you think that the data marketplace will either become more complex or simplify in the next year to year and a half? I know that a lot of well, they'll edit this, but a lot of the people who've been speaking have been talking a lot about the need for simplification in the various aspects of online marketing.
Yeah, there was a Norman wrote this book called The Design of Everyday Things. Really good book about trying to simplify things. And then I think it was a decade or two later, he wrote another book about almost the opposite, saying some areas are so complex that there's only a certain amount of simplicity you can bring to them. So we are in that range right now where this is too complex, clearly, has to be simplified. I think what you're going to see over the next 12 months is what I call the FNAC, and that is a bunch of companies that are features and not companies, and they're going to continue to emerge because there's funding. And
what do you mean features?
Meaning, if you look at the data space, there's many, many different things you have to do to get the value out of the data, to give it to the buyer, to integrate it into the media system, to bill it, to do the data mining, to do the analytics. And so you're finding companies emerge that does one piece. And if I looked at the circle, there's probably 6 core elements of delivering value for the data. And so you're going to find lots of companies sprinkling up in these 6 different areas. And then there's going to be consolidation. I think at the end of the day, the marketer's only going to want one platform to really tie it all together. It's similar to, as a consumer, I walk up to Exxon and I fill gas in my car. I don't actually know that there's a string of 50 companies behind the scenes that did different elements. I don't need to know as a consumer. I just want to pump. It's the same thing with data. You as an advertiser should be able to just go to one place, get what you need, and move on. We're just not there yet. Maybe we'll get so lucky as BlueKai and buy 50 companies and get there, but I don't think that's how it's going to play out.
That makes me think a lot about consumer control and consumers being able to kind of go one place and manage their data. I'm interested in how BlueKai is participating in empowering consumers in the control of their own data, and then what value that offers to the rest of the community, marketers and publishers.
3 years ago when we started the company, data was traded in the shadows, and it's been done that way for 30 years. Your credit card data, your transaction data, your demographic data, your census data, all this data is out there, and nobody knows how it's traded. So we came up with this concept of the registry, which is show consumers everything about them at the most detailed level. And I remember investors and a few people looked at me and said, "You're crazy. You're going to be plastered over the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and people are going to say, oh my God, look how bad these people are." Actually, it turned out 3 years later that everybody knows now that you have to be transparent, because I think sunlight is a disinfectant. Let consumers decide. The problem that we have now is it's still too complicated for the consumer.
That's what I was going to say. How does this go back to the complexity issue?
We need a nutrition label. Companies, and we're working with them, people like Better Advertising, I think they're now Evidon, are coming up with the concept of almost like a nutrition label. So you'll be able to simply, if you look at a good meal and you look at the ingredients, it actually isn't that simple. There's a bunch of ingredients and you don't actually always know what they all mean. But
spices.
Yeah, but you could, right? It's written in front of you and it tells you, is that what percentage of your daily dose. We need something that simple for consumers, not a privacy policy that requires a PhD, a simple statement and say, here's the data we used. Do you want us to do that or not? And we certainly have the tools out there. We just want everybody to use them. And I'm talking about free tools. I'm not talking about we don't make money off of transparency to consumers. But I think every ad that uses data should show something like this, and every page that collects data should also.
I mean, consumer expectation with data touches on what we've been talking about. And I'm wondering if their expectations in regard to their privacy either complement or conflict their expectations of really engaging, vibrant, interactive experiences.
In the main, it complements it. If we do not expose everything we're doing to the consumer and let them take control of what's happening, we're going to end up in frustrated consumers and bad legislation. So in the main, every publisher do what they can to make sure consumers really control and understand what's going on. The problem that we get into is it's similar to the tragedy of commons, and that would be if everybody said, look, you can't use my data, and everybody completely opt out, what would happen? You would essentially have to fund billions of dollars of free content somehow because advertisers don't want irrelevant data. Almost all advertisers in the banner space use either retargeting or conversion optimization or frequency capping. All those are techniques that require a third-party cookie. If you legislated that out or every consumer just said don't do it, then we'd have to pay for our content, and consumers really, really don't want that. So that's where there's a balance game where people have to explain to consumers that there's a trade-off. We just have to make it easy for them to understand that if they don't want any advertising or any targeting, then they need to pay for the content.
Right. Okay. What are some misconceptions people in the industry tend to have about data's role within the industry?
Yeah, you know, I remember back in '99 or 2000 sitting with some folks in CNN who sold TV advertising. And they had those guys there, and then they had the guys who sold internet advertising. And you could see the guys from TV advertising walked in with swagger and like, you know, these guys who sell banner ads, that, you know, I'll just give it away for free. And the early days of data were like that. It's the people who sold context thought that data was some byproduct that just, you know, whatever. And now it's starting to be looked at as a disruptive force. Soon it'll get its own respect as a first-party asset that people will really protect and care for. And I think we're still in that state of confusing where people are looking at it like, this thing looks like it's kind of interesting, but I'm maybe a little threatened.
Yeah, I can see that. This is a question that I'm asking almost everybody. What is something about the industry, your job, or your career that keeps you up at night? And a positive spin, what will be done or could be done to resolve it?
Yeah, so I think mainly the move to transparency quicker so that we control our future and not regulation. That's the biggest thing. The other one is talent. We find that data is a different field, and so it requires some skill sets from the media world, but also some skill sets from the analytical world. And it's becoming a hot growth area, but we're always on the look for talent, and you can't build a great company fast enough without really good people. So those are the two.
Yeah, those are big things.